Blighty Boxing with Frank Warren and Queensby Promotions here in Epping for a little catch up with the Guvnor. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine, Richard. You? Hope everyone's well at home.
Yeah, good
Happy
stuff.
New Year.
And to you, mate. It's a bit like first day of term back today, isn't it?
It feels like
kids
that,
come back to school. Did you put them all on the scales? Were they all
Yeah,
right?
they all went on the scales on the way in and on the way out. We took their temperatures. Yeah, everyone's in good shape. Everyone seems to be well and buzzing to be back.
I'll say the last time I think you had it was after the lockdown period, wasn't it? Because you don't normally stop, but you did a little fat club over at the old place, didn't you? For those who weighed back in a bit heavy, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. But fortunately, we haven't had to do that this time. Everyone's weight was good, so yeah.
Okay, well, with you, I don't want to keep you long, so I know you've got to shoot. We've got to reflect on a sort of a tumultuous end to 2020 for this gym. I mean, it's a real little roller coaster ride. Now, in a previous interview, we had already spoken about Denzel's win, which came at the end of November. But I do want to ask you about Denz. I know you're not his head trainer, but you probably are his manager. What would you like to see for him next? Because I'm not seeing many people mentioning his name.
Well, to be fair, I think we'll just see how the year pans out, see what shows are on, speak to Frank, see what they've got in the pipeline, and obviously try and keep Denzel busy, because I think you'll agree he's an exciting fighter, and people want to see exciting fights. So hopefully we can get him in some good fights and good matchups.
Would you like to see him sort of remain on his sort of British title sort of journey, or would you be happy to sort of swap and change?
Listen, I think if you're a British champion, I think that's a great level to be at, and if there's people there ready to fight him for the British title, well and good. I mean, there's a couple of real good fighters still domestically that he could fight and would be entertaining.
It would be the ideal way of him getting the necessary experience at that level, wouldn't it, rather than sort of getting ahead of himself, because he can stay in big fights but get the experience he needs.
There's still big fights at British level and Commonwealth level, as we both know, without calling anyone's names out, and I think there'd be exciting fights, so let's just see what the future brings.
Do you think there's part of Denzel where he had to be the smart one in those last couple of fights against Mark, picking his punches, being sharp, quick on his feet? Do you think there's part of him that wants to go back to being the aggressor, the one that's knocking people out? Because that's what he was doing earlier on, wasn't it?
I think he was, but Mark's a very good fighter, very durable, and I think he boxed a smart fight the first time round. So, for me, I enjoyed the first fight, but obviously the second fight, it was different and he approached it differently, and we worked on different things, but that's boxing. Sometimes you have to, things have to break to sort of fix them.
Now, the week after, I think you did pretty much nearly 3 weeks in a row, didn't you?
Yeah, we went far off.
So then the next one was Daniel's fight.
Was it Louis?
Yeah, Daniel Louis, and then Chris was the week after that, wasn't it?
Chris was the week after.
Yeah. So anyway, let's go. So on Daniel's night, Louis went first. I think because you had Daniel, it was an early fight, wasn't it? It got it done.
I think he was second on or something like that.
Yeah. Paul Holt, who I've seen as a Midland champion before, he's certainly not no gimme. A lot of people haven't seen it because it wasn't actually televised, although it is on YouTube. Tell us a little bit about it. Were you happy with it?
Yes, again, I think Louis is one of them kids who's not just because he's with us, and I don't want to keep saying our fighters are exciting, and I don't mean it like that, but Louis is a really exciting kid, and I think he needed them few rounds, and I think it's done him the world of good, and I think that was a good fight.
Probably just let him to let off a little bit of steam as well, because he's such a sort of whirlwind, isn't he?
Of energy, perpetual motion, isn't he? He don't stop.
But I mean, as far as you know, the title fight, but he was scheduled for before Christmas.
It's hopefully going to be February, but obviously we've got to see how that pans out now, because we had a thing from the board the weekend saying that January is going to be a closed shop. So then fights may roll into March now. We just don't know, do we? I mean, all we can do, fortunately we're in the gym ticking over, and today's our first day back, and as you see, the boys are all in reasonable shape. So we're going to have a week just ticking over and see how everything goes and pans out.
Everything's got to play it by ear again, haven't you? Sort of.
Yeah.
Then obviously the fight of that night was Daniel against Big Joe. For First of all, how's Daniel? Obviously, that's what people want to know.
Well, Daniel's well. He's good in himself. Obviously, we had a few discussions. He's got a meeting with the specialist on the 19th of January to see what they're going to do, whether they're going to operate or not. I think they're leaning towards not operating because they're talking about it may affect his vision or possibly may affect his vision. But we'll know on the 19th.
How has he reconciled himself to it? How's that sort of process been with him? I mean, you know him probably better than anyone. I mean, he is a little bit of a closed book sometimes. He doesn't give a lot away. How have you sort of detected that he's dealt with it?
Well, to be fair, we haven't been in the gym obviously because we've had Christmas and obviously with the injury, and you don't want to be training too hard on an injury. We'll see how he comes back, won't we? On the 19th, we'll know what the specialists say and where we can go from there.
But from talking to him, how do you detect?
Oh, listen,
he is
like
in
anyone,
himself,
he'd be disappointed. He's disappointed. But listen, that's boxing. You know.
Do you get the feeling that he sort of dusted himself down a little bit over the last few weeks?
To be fair, if I put my hand on my heart, I don't know yet until he's back in the gym and we see where we go from there. You know, if I was to say to you, oh yeah, he's all bubbly, I'd be lying. So I'll just wait and see. You know, be patient, and we'll just hopefully he comes back the boy he was. You know.
To put things into perspective, if the eye thing comes out as we all hope it will, and he's good to go, hopefully they'll say a natural healing process.
Well, that would be perfect solution.
You know, can take place. He's lost nothing. Assuming that is the case, he's really lost nothing. He's just gained a lot more experience, I would imagine.
Well, listen, that's the level he was at then, and you know, again, I don't want to take nothing away from Joe because Joe done a good job and he won the fight, but you know, Dan's at that level. That's it.
Yeah, I was going to say there's been some remarkable sort of rewriting of recent history and after timing going on, I think, in terms of some of the reflections on the fight, as if people were saying, but he was outclassed, he was out of his depth. But you've got to look back on it. It was a close fight. He wasn't getting beaten up, and bar the eye, he would have been the one coming on strong.
Well,
and he was ahead on the cards.
I don't want to take nothing away from Joe because listen, we wish.
No, I'm not in that.
No. We wish Joe well. But what I'm going to say is, you've only got to look at the scorecards. Dan was in front on the scorecards, but that was Dan's last round. That was it. It's a shame it ended how it did, but that's boxing, you know. You're in a live sport and you've got two people who are at the, you know, are both on point and they're both at that level. Someone has to lose. At
no point though was he out of his depth.
Not at all. Not at all.
You know, people sort of saying he wasn't ready for it. It was proved he hadn't had these middle fights.
Well, people go away and watch the fight a little bit more closely because, you know, like I say, we're not the judges and you know, everyone can see things different from their corner, and we see things, they see things, but it all comes down to the judges at the end of the day, and the judges had Dan up. So Dan wasn't out of his level, you know, he wasn't being outclassed, and again, that's no disrespect to Joe, he wasn't being outclassed, but he carried an injury from the third round onwards, and we done our best we could with the injury, but, you know, he got hurt. It is the hurt game, he got hurt.
Did anything surprise you about Joe? The fact that maybe he was a little bit more nimble than he is sometimes?
To be fair, I've always said Joe's a bit of an enigma because when I was explaining to Dan when we was getting ready for the fight, I kept saying to Dan, Joe's unusual because he's got fast feet and slow hands. Whereas when you train a fighter, you normally go the other way. You normally go slow your feet down and have fast hands. But Joe's the opposite. Joe can make his way across the ring. So no. You know, again, I didn't find out nothing that I didn't know about Joe that night. Listen, we know he's got a good engine, we know he's got a good chin.
But he wasn't the Joe. He wasn't the Joe that was walking into shots against Stiverne and Jennings.
No, but to be fair,
so he adapted, didn't he?
He did adapt, but after the third, Dan wasn't the same. So did he adapt, or did Joe? Like I said, I don't want to take that away from Joe because I don't want to sit here thinking I'm saying, oh, if Dan would have done this, Dan would have done that. It's a fight. What happens, happens. It's live, they're both trying, they're both doing their best. So Joe won on the night. But again, from the third round, Dan wasn't really the same fighter, he got hurt. And, you know, like all things, with experience, you you as the fighter, you have to cope with it. You know, it doesn't matter what we say in the corner. You've got to be able to cope with it.
Now, I'm not picking holes in anything like, you know, there's a tendency to do when things don't go your way or our way. But I'd never noticed before, but you do the cuts.
I've always done
I've never noticed that. I suppose it's because I've never really, in all the time I've watched your fighters, they haven't really cut up, have they?
I don't know, you can say that.
I can't think of any bad cuts in all the time of watching your lads. I suppose that's why it's never really leapt out at me
probably
before.
different times, isn't it? You know, early days we had
back in
a
the old
few
days,
fighters
yeah.
who really cut like nearly all the time. It's just how it goes.
But I've kind of been watching closely since Overville, Armet, people like that, and I don't really remember them cutting up, to be honest. And this new breed certainly haven't, have they?
No, but listen, it's what it is, and it's part of the game.
But you've always done it. You're one man band.
I won't say I was a one-man band, but I just think we keep everything in house. I mean, what's the point of going to a show? You don't know someone, they come in your corner and they start working with your fighter and doing, you know, automatically that puts a seed of doubt in your fighter's mind that you've got a problem. I don't see it as a problem.
It's just something I hadn't noticed before. Now then, I suppose naturally you were down the following week, but you had to quickly pick yourself up.
On the Monday, we had to come back in the gym on the Monday.
And because
listen, that is the game, you know what I mean? All these boys have got different stories, you know what I mean? Like that's Dan's story, that was Chris's story, that was Louis' story. It's what it is, and you just have to put a brave face on it and get on with it, like anything.
What's it like though, sort of keep going into those bubbles one after the other? That must get a bit tedious,
That was a bit hard work, but again, listen, it's the sport we're in, and we're fortunate enough to be able to have our sport live on telly, and the boys are getting work, so I'm not complaining about that. That's all part of it. It's not a problem.
Now, Chris, I was going to say, a lot of people thought, myself included, thought he was in for a tough fight against
Self-included.
Michael Ramabaleza. To get a finish like that was spectacular and a real statement made.
Yeah, real statement. I mean, look, I think we know Chris is a good little fighter. We know he's a banger, and it's unusual to have like kids who can bang it that way. So, you know, a bit of a blessing there.
Where do you see him just moving onwards and upwards now? He's got an international title to add to his southern area. Would you like? I know you're a fan of it. Would you like English, British?
Well, to be fair, I looked at that as an English title fight,
of course,
and I don't want to take nothing
he was
away
the
from
English
the boy
champion, wasn't he? Yeah.
who was supposed to be fighting for it. But again, it's boxing. It's always moving. It's always changing. I see that as Chris ticking the box as the English champion. If that's not being rude to any of the other boys out there. Now, really, we want to be looking on for the British. It's another
tasty division,
really
isn't it?
good fight. But look, you know, if you're going to have good boys, and you know, you don't want to. I don't want to say you want to chuck them in and be like kamikaze, but you need to move them forward, and they need to be having progressive fights. Again, that's where Dan was. That's where Denzel was. You know, you get to a point you have to take these. You know.
Well, all your group now are all at that point where they're all going to be in quotes real fights, aren't they?
Meaningful fights.
So I mean, everyone's going to be. You know, it's going to have something on it.
With the way the TV is at the moment, with going in the bubble, I think people, you know, I don't want to say you want value for money, because whatever fights they're in, they all give value for money. But you know, on the telly, we want to put our sport out there as the best, fighting the best.
I suppose just finally, for those of you who aren't in your TV group, I just suppose you just can't wait to hear news of some sort of activity on the
100%.
Listen,
on
the
I thought for all the boys
front.
who are out there, probably all last year, who never boxed.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to sit here and saying, like we was in the bubble for 3 weeks. It was fucking fortunate to be in the bubble for 3 weeks. So I know how lucky we are, and there's no downside to it. All right, we lost with Dan. You know, big fight, but big occasion. But that happens. We'll see what Dan's made of now, and you know how he comes back.
Obviously, you've got Larry Akindeo, Sean Phillips, Tom Akindale.
Tom is still waiting for his pro debut.
I mean, but how are all these guys sort of holding it together? Sort of,
well, to be fair,
he dropped off. Ryan Robinson Another one. Are they staying on it, or are
No,
they still?
Ryan's not dropped off at all, but Ryan was in the Fat Club, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I hope you're watching this, Ryan. No, Ryan was in the Fat Club, but he's not really a fatty, so I shouldn't say that. But it was just because of the way that when the bubble first started, we could only have so many boys in the gym, so we picked 6 boys who could work with each other. So,
and you had 2 venues, didn't you?
Yeah, and we had 2 venues, but now it looks like things are going to change again. So hopefully we get Ryan back in here.
But have they all sort of stayed up?
Yeah,
or
listen, they're fires. All the boys are going through the same thing. We ain't going through anything different. But
it'd be easy to get despondent, though, wouldn't it?
It would be, but like I said, we've been very fortunate. We've had boys out, so I can see both sides of the coin, sort of thing. We've got boys who we haven't had out, and we've got boys who we have had out. And the boys who we haven't had out ain't looking at the boys who have been out going, "Oh, it's all right for them," or it's what it is. It's where they are at that point in their career.
Final question: will we have a Peacock show this year?
Oh, you'd have to speak to Tony about that. I hope
What's your
so.
hunch?
Will we have venue? Will we have a venue? Will the hotels be open? We don't
December,
know, do we?
Yeah. What's that normally, about 8th December, something like that?
Yeah, normally it's December, like the first or Friday in December, I think we normally do it.
All us old boys will be vaccinated by then, won't we?
I hope so.
I know you need.
Nice night out.
I know you need to go and inspect the estate. So
no worries.
Thank you very much.
All right, I just wish everyone happy New Year and all the best to all the fighters out there. Hope they get out this year.